Hey guys, Siberian Husky fan. I'm here and I'm going to show you my Game Boy collection as well as Nintendo DS collection. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to start off with are my DMGs. So these are in order from how I got them and when I got them. And it started off with this one, which I got in 2011. And I had to refurbish this one shell-wise, as well as I kept the old buttons from the original because the new buttons kept sinking in. But it's in pretty good shape. The only problem with it is it has the horizontal line issue, which can never be fixed, which you can see there. So then this DMG, I just have to get it in a new screen, but it's in pretty nice shape. And I got it in a lot where it wasn't working, but its battery terminals just needed cleaning because they were corroded. So those are the original gray bricks, as well as I have my boxed one, which you guys have already seen. And then we have the Play It Loud. Now, I know out of the American Play It Loud colors, the only color I'm missing is black. I don't have it yet. And then the other two Play It Loud models that I'm missing is the Manchester United and the white one, both of which are very expensive, and I can't really get them at the moment. So we have the transparent, which is awesome looking. We have the green. Screen's pretty scratched, but again, I'm going to replace that. We have red. Again, scratched up screen. And there's the back. Yellow, which this one's in a little rough shape. There's like glue all over the screen here, as well as someone's dog probably got to this external connector port, but at least it came with it. And then there's the back. And then blue, which this didn't come out in North America. This came out in Europe and Japan only. So I was lucky enough to buy it, and it has its external port, which I was super happy about. But I will be cleaning this in a future video, but not at the moment. So this is the DMG family, as well as the Play It Loud. Next in line was the Game Boy Pocket. It was smaller, it also had a bigger screen, and it was more black and white than the greenish and black background color that was on the DMG. And it also ran on 2 AAAs. What I forgot to mention is that the DMG runs on 4 AA's. But I had to refurbish this Game Boy Pocket because it had a lot of problems with it, but it was totally worth it. But it also, what it did better than the DMG was it got rid of the ghost effect, which was a big problem with the DMG with fast motions and everything. So the Game Boy Pocket pretty much just solved all those issues, as well as it was more portable than the DMG. So that's the Game Boy Pocket. Next in line was the Japanese only Game Boy Light. This obviously came out in Japan only. It came out in 1998, which was the same year as the Game Boy Color, which is kind of why this system flopped and never made it to America. They made this and a gold one as the main colors, and then they made a whole bunch of special editions that go for a lot more money than what these go for. The special thing about this system is it obviously has a backlight. Looked more like a watch light, but that was pretty good for the time. It also ran on 2 AA's instead of the 2 AA's, but the back kind of bulged out a little bit, which they ended up fixing with the Game Boy Color. So that would be the Game Boy Light. Next was the Game Boy Color family. Made in the same year as the Game Boy Light, but everyone was more prepared for this system than the Game Boy Light, so they went ahead and discontinued the Game Boy Light shortly after this came out. So as you can see, I have all the main colors, as well as I have 2 of the Pokemon Special Edition systems. They made Grape, Teal, Dandelion, Kiwi, Berry, This was also a main color, but it's not in like the color sequence, Atomic Purple. A couple of these I modded and backlit, but most of them are not, as well as this one I just recently got, and this will be in a future cleaning of the Game Boy Color videos because it's pretty messy and disgusting, so I'll be going over that in a later video. But all in all, the first one I ended up getting was Grape because it's an awesome color and I love it, and I will show you the backlight mod. So, that was something I did in my time. This ran on 2 AA's, not bulging like the Game Boy Light, and you could play Game Boy games as well as Game Boy Color games, as well as these were like jewel cases, so you could play it on original Game Boy. But then they went to Game Boy Color, which were clear see-through games. This is my favorite Game Boy out of the Game Boy family. I love the Game Boy Color. It has to be my favorite out of the whole Game Boy family. So that's the Game Boy Color for 1998. The next Game Boys that came out was in 2001, and it was the Game Boy Advance original, the horizontal system. I currently only have 4 of them. I'm technically missing 2 or 3 of the colors if you count the Spice one as a main color. It was made for Japan, but it never came out in America, and I also only have 1 limited edition. I will be making a video on me cleaning a Game Boy Advance later. It will be this one because it is very disgusting and it needs a good cleaning, as well as it needs a new battery cover because there is none. This one came with it and it's in much better condition. So, the cool features about this is that it added the L and R buttons, which were new at the time, as well as the new Game Boy Advance games, which were about half the size as Game Boy games. But it could also play Game Boy Original, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Video. Well, get in there. The only downside was that this was the last Game Boy family to not have a backlight. You can backlight it nowadays, but it's with an AGS 101 model of the Game Boy Advance SP. But if I'm ever going to do that, I want to make sure that Advance SP is for sure not going to be able to work. So I have no use of me killing a Advance SP for backlighting this. Until they come up with a better method, I'm not really going to use that method. But, again, this is the Game Boy Advance. Okay, so this part has all of my Advance SPs. I've gotten these all within the past like 4 or 5 years, starting out with this one and all the way out to this one. So the Advance SP came out in 2003, starting out with the AGS 001 model. And then in 2005, they made the AGS 101. I have 3 AGS 101s and 2 001s. This one was a pearl blue one, but I changed it to purple because purple is my favorite color. And its shell pretty much looked like what this one does. And don't worry about this one, I will be making a future video of me cleaning it as well as getting it a new shell, because as you can see, it's a little rough. So, the AGS 101 model has a brighter screen, and the 001 doesn't have as bright of a screen. I'll show you. So, you can make it brighter, or you don't have to. As opposed to the, whoops, 001. So, that's kind of the difference. This one also has problems with the power switch as well, which I will be playing with that. Okay, normally it doesn't turn on that quickly. Maybe I'll try again. Yeah, sometimes it flickers like that. Like that. That's what I mean. So, that's what I'll go over in a later video, but this is the Game Boy Advance SP models AGS001 and 101 model. The next Game Boy and final Game Boy in the Game Boy line was the Game Boy Micro. This is the only one I've got. This is the Famicom edition, and it's the American one. It's all got English and everything on it. And I have Pokemon Fire Red in here. And it is really awesome, minus the fact that it doesn't play anything but Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Player videos. So, it's a minus for the fact that it's not backwards compatible with anything, but it's really awesome and really tiny. Like, I'm a female, so my hands are naturally tiny, and it fits in my hand, pretty much. It's really awesome. So, I will turn this sucker on. Yes, I know there's this. I really messed up trying to reassemble this because it was my first time disassembling it, so I'm going to go back into it today and reassemble it. You can make the screen brighter and everything. So that is the Game Boy Micro, which makes this the last Game Boy in the Game Boy line. Next, I'll be going over my DS system. So now we're starting off with the Nintendo DS systems. They started out in 2004 with the DS Fat, or 2005-ish. And then a year later, they made the DS Lite, which is a smaller version, and it's also got a brighter screen. So the DS Fat also has the Game Boy Advance game compatibility, but it only plays Game Boy Advance. It does not play original Game Boy or Game Boy Color or anything. So, I beat mine up to hell. This was my very first system that I ever owned ever. For myself, at least. My brother and I shared a PlayStation 2, but this was mine, technically. So that is the DS Fat. I do plan on refurbishing this, but right now I'm going to be working on my Game Boys first. I'm not the best with DS systems yet, but until I am ready for it. I also broke the hinge on this. The hinge on this is also broken, but it's not as bad. It's my favorite color, cobalt blue. And it also has the Game Boy function there. And it still has its original stylus. This one does not. I got this 3 years after I got that. I was in 9th grade. But as you can see, the screen's tinier, as well as it's brighter. But it still functions the same as a original DS. They stopped making the DS family. Well, I mean, they still make like the 3DS and everything, but the original DS family a little after the DSi came out. But the DSi just had a function of camera and everything. I do not have any DSi's or the DSi XL. I went straight to 3DS after I had these two for a couple years. So this is my DS family that I have. And next we're going to take a look at my 3DS system. Okay, and finally we have my 3DS family, which as you can see I don't have much, but then again it goes a long way to have two 3DS XLs and a 2DS. And especially since both of these are limited editions. So I don't have a 3DS original, but that came out in I think 2011, and then in 2012 they came out with the 3DS XL, which has a very large screen, as well as the addition of a home button and power buttons down here, and they added an analog stick, a wireless function, and as well as your SD card goes over here. and a camera up here and 2 cameras down here, making it really different for today's standards. I may see. So let me see here. Has a SD card of 4 gigabytes. I think the regular 3DS runs on 2 gigabytes. Get in there. And then they gave the 3DS XL as 4 gigabytes, and as well as the 2DS here used to start with a 4 gigabyte, but the guy I bought this off of gave me 8 gigs. So, which was super nice. The 2DS came out in 2013, and it was made for kids because the 3D function on here, which is right here, wasn't for kids under the age of, I think, 7 or 6. So this is just a 2D model, and there is no 3D function, but kids under the age of 6 or 7 can play it. I like it because it's this open design like the old Game Boy, as well as it's comfortable in the hand, especially tiny hands here. This is still pretty awesome though. This is the NES edition. And yep. But the new features obviously was the 3D function, home button, and just awesome stuff. I love this. I love these systems to death. The only problem with them is how short their battery life is. Like, I play on my Game Boy a lot, and that lasts me 30 hours. I haven't had to change the batteries on any of them. But these, I have to recharge the battery every 6 hours. They usually drain. 6 to 8 hours is what they normally say, but that just kind of sucks because I play Pokemon a lot, and I play hours on end, so the fact that in the middle of the day I gotta put in my charger just kind of sucks. But other than that, they're awesome systems. So don't be deterred about the 2DS either. This is amazing. I've had it for over a week now, and it's been amazing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and this has been my whole Game Boy collection. See you guys.